We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
So today we're here with Răzvan Nicolescu with more than 20 years experience in the energy and climate change sectors. He is one of Romania's and Europe's leading experts. Now you've got a storied background. It's fantastic. You're currently at Deloitte, the advisory partner for energy and resources. You're the leader for Romania and the sector leader in Central Europe. Since 2018, you're the associate professor at Bucharest Academy of Economic Studies. Between 2008 and 2014, director for regulatory affairs at OMV Petrom, which is the biggest Romanian energy company. In 2014, the Romanian Minister of Energy, and your bio goes on and on. Chairman of the European Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators, Romanian Energy Attaché to the EU, non-executive board member at the Romanian Power Transmission Systems Operator, Transelectrica, and even more. Electrical engineering background, MBA, Răzvan, welcome to the Energy Impact Podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here with you.
It's great to see you. Today, where do we find you in the world? I know that you're on the road often.
Today, or say it again because I did not hear it very well.
Where are you today in the world? Are you in Romania or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm in Romania planning to travel.
Okay, so we've got you at home. It's a great context. Let's talk about you before we actually hop in. Tell us about your career. How do you get your start in the energy market?
Well, it's a nice story. Actually, I had a passion for physics. And my teacher during my high school, he recommended to me to go to become an engineer. Mm-hmm. And I'm in energy. I saw that it was something linked to the future. And I was thinking of going and becoming an engineer, electrical engineer. My mother, she wanted me to become an IT engineer, and my father wanted to follow his career path. Doing sports. My father was a soccer player and trainer and teacher teaching sports. Mm-hmm. I also was, when I was very young, I liked doing sports. I'm the national champion of Romania in 3 different sports.
Which sports?
Volleyball, indoor, beach volleyball. And when I was young, I was champion in chess.
Okay.
In chess, yeah.
All right.
I said, well, to be an engineer and to deal with energy could be something very nice. And I think that I made a nice choice. And also, I managed to have peace in my family, because if I decided to go and to follow the recommendation of my mother, maybe the father would have been upset, or the other way around. So they were both happy. So everybody was happy.
All right. Do you have brothers and sisters, or
no? I'm the only one, the only child in the family.
Okay, so heavyweight on your shoulders. You almost became a professional beach volleyball player. You were going to take over as a grandmaster in chess, but instead you disappointed your family when you became the Romanian Minister for Energy in 2014. I think that your parents are probably pretty proud about that. But it was somewhat interesting when you came into office. You were not a member of any political party. How does that work?
Well, actually, it was a very intensive political momentum, because it happened just before a couple of very important elections. Mm-hmm. and probably the party ruling the country at that time wanted to have a technician able to conduct in a consensual political type of approach to conduct some very important actions. So it was just before the presidential elections, which are the most important elections in Romania, like in the US. We have a president elected by people, pretty powerful in comparison with other presidents from other EU countries. So our model is close to the French model and following or being closer to the American model than other models existing in Europe. And then it was just before also the elections for the European Parliament. So the politicians were busy doing politics, and they wanted to let some technical people to conduct some important actions, processes at that time. For example, I initiated the revision of the Romanian energy strategy. I managed to complete successfully the largest IPO ever organized on the Romanian and London Stock Exchange.
What do you mean you orchestrated an IPO as a Minister of Energy? How does that work?
It was a state-owned company, the largest utility in the energy sector, a company called Electrica. So actually I was responsible, I was the coordinator, of the process to sell 51% of the company via an IPO on the Romanian stock market and on the London stock market. So the company was listed in London and in Bucharest at the same time.
So it sounds like part of your job was opening up of the market. What are the other responsibilities of a Minister of Energy in Romania?
Well, actually, you need to define the strategy. That's to define a plan for public policies, to create a good environment for investments. You are also responsible for the administration of some state-owned enterprises. There are still state-owned enterprises in the energy sector. So you have a lot to do. In the US at my time was as a state secretary in the how is it called, Department of Energy. Professor Moniz. We used to work very closely, and he's a very nice person.
All right. What was it like on your first day?
The first day in office?
First day in office, what did you do?
The first day in office, it was probably the most important day, because at the end of the first day, I said that it's completely different being in comparison with being out of the decision-making process. There are many internal fights that you feel, but if you are not in, you have no clue about it. And I said at the end of the first day that I'm going to behave like each day is my last day in office, and I'm going to do whatever I can in order to make good things for the country, for the people, for the energy sector. So politics is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous sport. So this was the conclusion of the first day. I said, probably I'm not going to stay too much here, because I didn't want to make too many compromises. Let's say that each day is my last day, and let's do whatever I can.
In many administrations around the world, there's a transition of tradition, or a tradition of transition gags and notes. Is there anything like that in Romania that you could share? Did you leave a note for your predecessor? Did you leave the lights off? What's the transition like?
I did a kind of transition with my predecessor, but my predecessor was appointed as a Minister of Economy. And he was a politician. We did not share the same the same views. Um, and also, I tried to do it better with my successor. I mean, in terms of transition. I mean, to have and to share with him my thoughts and to be useful for him. Otherwise, it was a great experience. It was a great experience. I am not sure if I want to make it again, because, as I said, it's completely different than your expectations.
Let's dig into that. Let's start with Romania and then work ourselves outward to the European stage and then globally. Now, for many of our listeners that are located in the U.S. and not in Europe, let's talk a little bit about basics. So Romania is a country in southeastern Europe. It borders the Black Sea between Bulgaria and Ukraine. It's about twice the size of Pennsylvania, slightly smaller than Oregon, and it has about 21 million people in it, so the same number as Florida. Your energy landscape is very diverse. There's coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, wind, biomass, solar. And currently, the country has undertaken a mission to achieve a quota of 30.7% renewable energy. That's set forth by the National Integrated Plan for Energy and Climate Change 2021 to 2030. All right. Can you explain what a national integrated plan actually is?
I'm gonna explain it, but before, if I may, I would like to add a little bit to the presentation that you made for the country in terms of energy, because I think it's very interesting for the people who are watching what we discuss.
Please do.
Romania was the first country in the world recorded officially as an oil producer. It's not sure if it was the real first one producing oil, but because it might be a situation, it was another one producing but not being recorded officially. But officially is recorded as being number one. Maybe it was not as I said, number one, but it was among the first countries producing oil. No doubts about the fact that the first refinery in the world was built in Romania. This is not questionable. Yeah, it was built in Ploiești, where there is an amazing oil museum. Bucharest was the first capital in the world with public lighting. Timișoara was the first city in the world, another Romanian city, with public lighting. So there is a huge history in the energy sector. That's why what you have just said about the country having the most balanced energy mix in the European Union, it's a nice journey. I mean, from oil and gas towards much cleaner type of energy sources. Was the first country in the Europe with a complete nuclear fuel cycle.
What does that mean, a complete nuclear fuel cycle?
I mean, except the technology, which was bought from Canada, Romanians did not want to have the Russian technology in the nuclear field because they didn't trust the Russians much. So they were the only country from the, let's say, from the former Soviet influence sphere that refused to have Russian technology in the nuclear field. And they decided to develop a partnership with Canada. And there is, in the nuclear field, there is CANDU technology. All the rest, except the technology, is produced locally. Heavy water, uranium, everything is produced locally, giving the country a lot of independence in terms of, especially in relation to the former Soviet Union. And I think that the future will be linked to the development of clean technologies, renewable, nuclear, in order to replace coal and gas especially if coal and gas are not able to develop carbon capture and storage type of technologies. Yeah.
All right. So let's shift to the National Integrated Plan for Energy. What does that actually mean? Is it a binding obligation? Is it strict? Is it just general guidelines that European nations have to place out, but nobody actually follows? How does that work?
So it is a binding plan. So when you submit it to Brussels, it's like a strategy, but you commit. It's a commitment that you are going to do it.
Mm-hmm. What happens if a country does not meet the obligations of the plan?
Sorry, because I don't know, I'm a bit cold.
That's okay.
Nothing related to COVID, I hope. Or at least this is what the test says, that I'm okay.
Drink some water.
Yeah. So a normal cold. Yeah. Well, it's a binding plan, as I said. If you don't do it, you are brought in front of the European Court of Justice, mm-hmm. and you pay penalties.
All right.
So it's a legal problem.
Who sets the plan then? Are countries independent in their energy sovereignty, or are member states of the EU obligated? And when they do their plans, if there are new power production facilities and generation facilities in the country, do they have to get everything approved? Where does that planning mix of who's responsible for what lie?
It is the responsibility of the member states.
Of the member states. Okay.
Yeah, they consult with the European Commission, mm-hmm. but it is their responsibility. They make the final decision. They submit the plan.
Right.
But
so
when they submit,
as the country then is moving towards the renewable goals, what needs to be done in the country? What actions have already been taken?
You have to, the country has to make a couple of things. Mm-hmm. First, for the energy transition, you need to prepare the networks, the electricity networks. If we are now talking about electricity consumption, yeah, mm-hmm. you have to prepare the networks to have the networks more digitalized and more capable to integrate renewable. That's number one. Number two, we need, for example, to learn from the Californian example and to develop backup capacities. Mm-hmm. When renewable cannot supply. If it is batteries, storage batteries, or other type of storage, but you have to have backup capacities. Mm-hmm. Electricity is a type of commodity pretty unique because you produce it and you consume it almost at the same time, and it's not easy to store it. So what mm-hmm. we have to develop and to do more in terms of storage if we want to have more renewable. Mm-hmm. Then you need to create a friendly environment in order to get permits. Yeah, if you want to install something, you have to decrease the bureaucracy, you have to increase the transparency, and you have to make it, in a decent period of time, not to wait for I don't know how many approvals, how many months. Mm-hmm. That's very important to eliminate bureaucracy. Mm-hmm. The rest, there is a very good potential for wind. There is a very good potential for photovoltaic. There is a very good potential for geothermal energy. Very good potential for biomass, and people are positive and friendly in relation to the nuclear energy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We, as I said, have had a great experience with this Canadian partnership. Our nuclear power plants are on top of the top in terms of nuclear safety. Mm-hmm. People are favorable. So this is it's a good environment. and it's an interesting market.
What are some of the challenges that you've seen Romania face over the past decade, and have they changed?
In terms of challenges, I think that uh, the biggest problem is linked to the performance of the public administration.
Hmm.
Public administration has the need to be reshaped, reshuffled, restructured.
Mhm.
In order to increase that performance with less bureaucracy, better efficiency. So the biggest problem is linked to the public administration, and it affected a lot the sector.
Mhm.
That's why when I had the honor and the opportunity to work for the state as a member of the cabinet, one of the most important projects that I initiated was to open the ministry for fresh people, young people.
Mhm.
And it was an amazing positive surprise how many young people wanted to work. However, the wages at that time were not amazing. Now are slightly okay, but at my time they were not so great.
Mhm.
But they wanted to. It was a great experience for them, and they wanted to be part of the journey.
Let's talk about that. So there's an increased interest in people joining the ministries, getting into government, making a change. But at the same point in time, the Romanian government is having this repeated series of turnovers. So there have been 7, 8, 9 ministers of energy over the last decade or so in Romania. Is that a challenge that the country is facing from an energy planning perspective, that there's too much turnover in government? Or do you think that things are beginning to stabilize a bit?
I think the things are going to be stabilized, but it's not good when you have so many changes in a short period of time.
Mhm.
Sometimes ministers, top level politicians, top level decision makers, they have their own egos. They think that their vision is the best in class. They do not want to agree, or they refuse to agree with what the predecessors did okay. There are also these type of things. Unfortunately, it was not my case, but unfortunately, there were also these type of attitudes, and this is not good.
Mhm.
This is not good, and this is everywhere. I mean, dealing with egos, it's an it's an important issue everywhere, not only in the public, also in corporations. I noticed that sometimes egos could destroy business.
Certainly. Now, in preparation for today, I spoke with a few subject matter experts in and around Romania. And one of the questions that I continually asked was, of all of the various ministries of energy, who is most capable? And without fail, you were always the first that people responded. So congratulations on that. It makes sense that you would shift into a large corporation like Deloitte because of your expertise. Again, you're now the advisory partner for energy and resources in Romania, but it's not just Romania, it's Central Europe, even beyond. Let's talk about the global view. What can we do to succeed in the global energy transition, not from a country level, not from a European level, but globally?
The first thing, Adam, that we should do is to learn from the COVID crisis.
Mhm.
If we are going to manage the energy transition like we have been managing the COVID crisis, we will definitely fail.
Mhm.
Um, we need more solidarity, and we need a much better coordination. If you say, I don't care about the others, I care only about our situation in Romania, we have no issue. So yesterday I looked at the latest figures. We have one of the lowest CO2 tons of CO2 per capita in the EU.
Mhm.
So 50% lower than in Hungary, 100% lowered in Poland. We say, guys, we are okay. We don't want to do anything. We should not do anything because we are just perfect. Look at the average CO2. In my view, this is the most important indicator. Again, if we want to make money out of the energy transition, that's why I make this comparison with the COVID crisis. You see, now there are a couple of companies selling products, selling vaccines, selling I don't know any other products used to handle the COVID crisis. It's the same in the energy transition. So it should be something balanced, because if it is too much business on only business, then at what moment in time we will face troubles. I traveled a lot pretty recently before the COVID crisis, meeting many people from many countries discussing how they handle the energy transition. So energy transition, in order to be successful, should deliver also good results from the economic perspective. Because if you say everything we produce in China and you just buy it from us, it does not work like that. Yeah, it should create jobs. It should create income. It should generate taxes in all the countries. Otherwise, some of them might say, "I don't want to act." And I mean, only one, for example, if India does not want to act, we will not be successful. We will not be successful.
Let's talk.
So more solidarity is definitely needed. Maybe a discussion also on the WTO rules in terms of intellectual property rights. For example, if the two of us, if we invent an amazing technology that can save the world, should the world wait for us to be able to produce this technology and to deliver it at a global scale? Or should the world give us some money as a recognition of our effort and be able to use it immediately without waiting us to develop the production capacities and capacities to supply that technology to the entire world? That's a very important question, and that's a critical question.
What about intergovernmental and intercountry collaboration? Do you think that there are mechanisms in place that can encourage collaboration, or do you think that there should be a renewed focus on collaboration between countries as well?
I think it's good when the countries collaborate. By the way, the collaboration between Romania and the US is just great. And the Americans are very welcome in Romania. Romanians like Americans. They are very welcome to come, to travel, to have fun, to do business. So it's a very friendly country. Yes, collaboration is needed between countries, but not only between countries. Collaboration is needed between business people. But as I said, in order to be successful with the energy transition, we need solidarity, and we need to learn from this COVID crisis. We have been suffering.
For listeners who aren't familiar with industry and the business capabilities in Romania, can you speak to that a bit? What is Romania known for? Earlier, you talked about the innovative spirit, the rich tradition of being first, especially in the energy landscape. What should people know about Romania that they might not know?
So in terms of, as I said, the past is just great. The present, I think, is a decent one. The most balanced energy mix in the EU, and the top 3 EU countries in terms of energy independence. So we produce a significant part of our resources locally, including oil, gas, and all the rest. Yeah. Already renewable energy supplies 25% of the total needs, I mean, of the energy mix. So it's one of the most independent countries in terms of energy from the EU. As you know, many of the EU countries relies on Russia. Here is not the case. And the perspectives for the future are just very interesting. Let's put it like that. Because, as I said, an important energy to be saved, for example, in buildings. So a great potential for energy savings. Yeah. A great potential to produce wind energies, photovoltaic energy, geothermal energy, biomass energy, an interesting appetite for nuclear. I think without nuclear, it will be very difficult to meet the goals in terms of climate change. So that's why it depends how we again a good perspectives for hydrogen. Good perspective for hydrogen. It's important now. There are also available some financial resources to be invested. It's important to invest in a smart manner and with a good return for the entire society.
You mentioned nuclear recently, and I'm not sure if you've seen this. The Joint Research Center of the European Commission finished a review on green energy finance, and it's making a recommendation to the European Commission that nuclear energy should qualify as green energy. This viewed as one of the primary hurdles to nuclear power again being re-embraced in the EU, potentially opening the door even for nuclear power to receive equal investment treatment as renewables. Do you think that this is actually going to move forward? Do you think that the perception of nuclear energy in Romania and in Europe and maybe even the world might change?
I think it's I've read the conclusions of the study. I did not have time because it's a very recent study. I did not have time to read the entire study, but I've read the conclusions and recommend, as exactly as you said. They also mentioned something that they did not assess other risks in terms of that the nuclear energy could bring for the environment. They focus only on climate change, and their conclusion was clear that in terms of climate change, nuclear is a robust option. It's positive, I think, for the future of nuclear energy. And as I said, in my view, without nuclear, it's very difficult to be successful. From my point of view, the biggest problem faced by the nuclear sector is the fact that nuclear projects are very high intensive in terms of investments.
Yeah.
So you need big money. And that's why the appetite to take the market risks combined with the large scale of investments. So this appetite is not very big because, as I said, we are talking about billions. When, of course, I'm talking about ordinary projects. So I think probably in the coming years, the role of nuclear energy will be more and more underlined in the context of the fight against climate change. I also think that for the moment we do not pay enough attention to CCS type of technologies.
CCS meaning
carbon capture and storage.
Right.
So I think without nuclear and without CCS, we will not be able to meet the climate targets. And unfortunately, when we talk about climate crisis, it is a lot of, it's a lot of, not all the people are honest. They sometimes defend too much some of their business interests. So, in my view, if you are honest, you have to accelerate and to act in a smart manner. Yeah, it's very difficult to tell the people stop traveling or now you only go by bicycle. If you want to go from New York to Washington, you should go by bicycle or by. It's difficult to change this, and we should not do it. We should avoid to be extremists. We should avoid the extremes. Yeah, we should say every day. Yesterday, you know what I did? Yesterday, together with my family, I plant trees. I plant around 20 trees, and I do it from time to time, and I feel just great. But if you tell me, please, tomorrow, as I said to you, I'm planning to travel by plane. If you tell me, don't go there, it's very difficult for me to accept this type of life. So, and we need to be realistic.
Agreed. Now, there's a statement about people that says you're unique just like everybody else. And you can take that same type of sentiment and apply it to countries as well. So Spain is unique, just like every other country. When we're talking about this global ecosystem and you look at the myriad of choices for energy, it could be renewables from photovoltaic, it could be hydro, it could be wind, clean energy with nuclear, you could go dirty if you wanted to look at coal. But not every single energy source is great for every single country. Some countries may have more sun, some countries may have more wind, some countries might be completely unique in a different way. When you look at the EU and countries look at their planning matrix, how does that get implemented? So are there different types of approval procedures for wind and hydro than there is for coal, than there is for nuclear? And how does that play out?
So, I mean, the permits and the approvals are handled at the national level. And it's not a coherent approach how many permits and who should issue the permits in the European Union. It belongs to countries, or sometimes it even belongs to regions. I mean, in one region of a country, it is a procedure. In another region, it's a slightly different procedure. But I do not see it as a major obstacle. I do not see it as a major obstacle. What I see it as a major obstacle for some type of energies are the support schemes. There are some type of energies that do not need support schemes anymore, at least in some countries. But politicians, they talk about it. They create dreams of accessing non-refundable monies via support schemes. And investors, instead of investing and making a good and decent return, they wait, expecting to make an amazing return, having subsidies. So a clarification at the European level on what could be financed with non-refundable national or EU money could be a great push for some investments. If we prolong the discussions about the recovery and the resilience plan, about I don't know how many modernization funds, this is not good for especially on a short term, is not good for the energy transition. So we need to clarify, and technologies, they have been in terms of cost, it's a permanent evolution. You need to propose let's say an yearly or even twice per year a kind of report, a kind of update on what it has been happening. Look at the photovoltaic industry. So the costs have decreased big time.
Mm-hmm.
So in comparison with what was 5 years ago, it's unbelievable. And this is because the investments in innovation. This is because of the production at the global scale, at a much larger scale. There are many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But a decision on what you subsidize and on what you should not subsidize I think, is a must. Okay. And again, it's very important not to discriminate among the technologies that bring, at least not to discriminate via approvals, via permitting the type of actions. Mm-hmm. Between the technologies that bring added value in terms of the energy transition, in terms of the fight against climate change. Right. Because you say, I want to get rid of coal, but I don't like CCS. Why don't you like CCS? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like because I want to get rid of coal, but I like only wind. I don't like photovoltaic, or I like only photovoltaic and I don't like nuclear. That's not okay. And that's why I said it's important to be pragmatic. It's important to be realistic. It's important to be fair, and it's important to show solidarity. Otherwise, if it's too much business behind, we will not make it.
Yeah. Rzvan, I don't think that you could have said it better. We could not leave it on a better note. That wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, great to have you.
Our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men and for the progress of all people.